Some objects don't frighten you right away. They don't scream. They don't move. They simply exist, quietly, patiently, until one day you realize they've been watching you the entire time. The doll arrived without warning. No delivery truck, no message, just a plain cardboard box sitting on the doorstep, already damp from the rain. Inside was a porcelain doll, pale skin, glass eyes, a stitched smile that felt unfinished, like it had been stopped halfway through becoming something else. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, the kind of thing you'd expect to find forgotten on a thrift store shelf. But when everyone in the house looked at it, no one described the same face. The mother remembered blue eyes. The father swore they were brown. The children argued over the shape of its nose, the curve of its mouth, the expression frozen on its face. They were all standing in the same hallway, looking at the same doll, and somehow they weren't seeing the same thing. That should have been the moment they moved it. Instead, they left it where it was. And that was the first mistake. At first, they assumed it was a mistake. Packages ended up on the wrong doorstep all the time. Someone would come looking for it. But the hours passed. Then the day. No knock, no phone call, no missing delivery notice taped to the door. There was no name on the box, no return address, no shipping label, only a strip of old tape yellowed with age, like it had been sealed years ago and opened only now. The father turned the box over and over again. Nothing. The doll didn't belong to anyone they knew. It didn't match any childhood memory. It didn't feel new, but it didn't feel old either. Eventually, they placed it on a narrow shelf in the hallway, between family photos and a cracked mirror that no one ever fixed. That night, as the house settled and the lights dimmed, the mother passed by the shelf and slowed her steps. Something felt wrong. She leaned closer. The doll's eyes looked darker than before. Not because of the shadows, because they weren't the same color anymore. She told herself it was exhaustion. Lighting could play tricks on the mind. Still, she didn't turn her back to the doll as she walked away. And for the first time, the hallway felt crowded, even though nothing else was there. The first argument happened over breakfast. The father mentioned it casually without looking up from his coffee. The doll's smiling more today. The room went quiet. The mother frowned. It doesn't have a bigger smile. It never did. The daughter glanced toward the hallway. Yes, it does. It looks happier. The son shook his head. It looks exactly the same. They all walked back to the shelf together. The doll stood where they had left it, still, silent, but the disagreement returned instantly. The father said the smile stretched wider on the left side. The mother insisted it was crooked the other way. The daughter thought the lips were thinner now. The son swore nothing had changed at all. They weren't arguing about opinions. They were arguing about facts. The same object, the same distance, the same light, yet every description was different. The mother laughed nervously and said people remembered things wrong all the time. The father didn't laugh. He felt something colder. because he was certain of one thing. Yesterday, the doll had not been smiling at him. The mother decided to settle it. If memories couldn't agree, evidence would. She took out her phone and stood directly in front of the shelf. No filters, no angles, just a simple photo. The camera clicked. She looked at the screen and froze. The doll in the photo wasn't the one in front of her. Its face was narrower. The eyes sought deeper in the sockets. The smile looked tired, almost regretful. For a moment, she thought the phone had glitched. Then she looked up. The doll on the shelf stared back with a different expression entirely. Rounder cheeks, brighter eyes, a smile that felt expectant. She took another photo, and another. Each image showed a slightly different face. Older, younger, softer, harsher. None of them matched what she was seeing in real time. When the others gathered around the phone, the arguments returned, only louder now. The father pointed at one image. "That's not what it looks like." The daughter whispered, "That one looks sad." The son said nothing, because in one of the photos, just one, the doll's eyes were looking past the camera, straight at him. No one said it at first. They just stood there, staring at the screen, each of them feeling the same uncomfortable pull, like a memory trying to surface but refusing to take shape. Then the daughter spoke. "Why does it look like Grandma?" The words landed heavier than any scream. The resemblance wasn't obvious, not enough to be coincidence at first glance. But once she said it, the similarities lined up. The gentle droop of the eyelids, the faint tension around the mouth, the expression of someone who had lived too long with quiet thoughts. Grandma had died 3 months earlier. Natural causes. Peacefully, they said. That night, the daughter couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the doll's eyes, how they looked tired but not old, as if they belonged to someone who had already seen everything. Sometime after midnight, she awoke to the sound of the hallway floor creaking. She didn't open her door. She didn't need to. In her mind, she could see the doll standing there. And for the first time since it arrived, she was certain of one thing. The face wasn't changing randomly. It was remembering. After that night, no one touched the doll. They didn't need to. Its presence had changed the house. The hallway felt narrower, quieter, like the air itself was listening. No one could say when it started, but at some point, the doll's gaze became impossible to ignore. It didn't follow them. Its head never moved. And yet, whenever someone passed the shelf, there was a sensation, a pressure behind the eyes, the unmistakable feeling of being noticed. The father felt it most in the evenings. He would sit in the living room, pretending to watch television, while something tugged at his attention from the darkness of the hallway. When he finally looked, the doll's face was different again, not in shape, in expression, sharper, more alert, almost interested. The mother noticed something else. The doll seemed to change most when emotions ran high. After arguments, its face looked tense. After laughter, softer. After silence, empty. As if it wasn't copying appearances. As if it was learning how they felt. And the longer they lived with it, the more personal the faces became. They agreed it had to go. No discussion, no arguments. The mother wrapped the doll in a towel, careful not to look at its face for too long. The porcelain felt colder than it should have, heavier too. The father carried it outside and dropped it into the trash bin at the end of the driveway. The lid slammed shut. That night, no one slept well. The house creaked more than usual. The walls seemed to settle and resettle like something shifting its weight. At sunrise, the father went outside. The trash bin was empty. No torn bag, no broken lid, just clean plastic. Inside the house, the doll stood back on the hallway shelf. But it wasn't the same. The face it wore this time was younger, smoother. The mother recognized it instantly. It was her daughter's face. Not an exact copy, just close enough to feel wrong. The daughter screamed, and for the first time, the doll wasn't just watching, it was choosing. The power went out at 2:17 a.m. No storm, no warning. The house dropped into a silence so complete it felt artificial, like someone had pressed a mute button on the world. The father grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the hallway. The beam landed on the shelf. The doll was still there, but its face was gone. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just smooth, featureless porcelain, polished and empty. For a moment he couldn't breathe. Then he heard it, a whisper, soft, close, "Dad." He turned. The hallway behind him was empty. When he looked back at the shelf, the doll's face had returned, but not fully. One eye was open. The other hadn't formed yet. The mouth was only a faint line, like it hadn't decided what expression to wear. The flashlight flickered, and in that brief pulse of darkness, the father understood something terrible. The doll wasn't losing its face. It was waiting for one. They stopped pretending it was imagination. Sleep became impossible. Silence felt dangerous. By morning, they were searching for answers. Not online, not in books about ghosts or curses. In records. Old property documents, handwritten notes tucked into dusty folders at the local archive. Letters left behind by people who no longer lived in the house. Every trail led to the same pattern. Different families, different years, the same description. A doll that appeared without explanation. A doll no one remembered buying. A doll that changed. One entry stood out. The handwriting was uneven, frantic. It doesn't take faces, it reflects them. The longer you notice it, the more it learns what you look like, what you feel like. It doesn't want to hurt us. It wants to stay. The mother closed the file slowly. They finally understood. The doll wasn't haunted. It was incomplete. And they had been filling in the missing pieces. Every glance, every argument, every moment of attention. They hadn't been watching the doll. They had been teaching it how to be human. They never decided what to do next. There was no ritual, no solution. That morning, the house felt lighter, too light. The hallway shelf was empty, no cracks in the porcelain, no dust where it had stood. It was as if the doll had never existed at all. The family didn't celebrate. They didn't speak. They moved through the day quietly, careful with their reflections, careful with each other. Late that afternoon, the daughter stood in the bathroom, staring into the mirror longer than usual. Her face looked normal, almost. When she smiled, it felt delayed, like something else was deciding when it should happen. In the hallway, the cracked mirror reflected her from a strange angle. For just a second, the reflection didn't move when she did. And in that frozen moment, the face looking back at her wore an expression she had seen before. Calm, patient, complete. Not all objects are meant to be used. Some are meant to be noticed. They don't arrive broken. They arrive empty, waiting for attention, waiting for recognition, waiting to be defined. The doll was never alive, but it was never just a doll either. It didn't steal faces. It learned them. It learned what grief looks like, what fear tightens into, what love hesitates before becoming something else. And when it finally understood enough, it didn't need the porcelain anymore. So if you ever come across something that feels familiar too quickly, something that seems to change the moment you look away, don't try to understand it. Don't photograph it. And whatever you do, don't give it a face. Because some objects aren't here to scare you. They're here to replace you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.